Hello cricket, it's 2016. That's now confirmed, and England beat South Africa 2-0 in a three-test series and then treated themselves to a very well-deserved week off, while South Africa were punished with an extra week's naughty boy test cricket at Centurion. From South Africa's point of view, England put a bit too late into capitulate. England had their backs against the wall, albeit as it turned out in the same way that school children might have their backs against the wall of the school corridor as they tried to sneak out without being seen by the teachers, nipping off to the beach for the afternoon. England fought like cornered cauliflowers in a 35-over display that felt more like a performance art piece about what is wrong with the modern world than a test match innings. But still, overall, a very good series win, and the consensus seems to be that England, despite what happened in Centurion, are still on the up. And indeed, I believe they are still on the up, but that they've just vomited all over the escalator. So whilst people can acknowledge that they are probably heading in the right direction, they are, quite rightly, not at all impressed by what they've just seen. Alistair Cook said, "If you'd offered me 2-1 before the series, I would have snapped your hand off." Not an advisable way of expressing gratitude, snapping someone's hand off, considered quite impolite around where I live, and it is a comment that's led to allegations that England have been feeding their players a special crocodile serum to make them more aggressive and reptilian on the field of play. I'm telling you, I think we've just uncovered the biggest scandal facing cricket today. Maybe not the biggest, but definitely top three. In the fourth test, South Africa unveiled their clever new tactic, picking an opening batsman who is an opening batsman. Hashim Amla timed the ball like a perfect souffle made of Swiss watches. Then Quinton de Kock put the quick ton into quick ton de Kock. Then Kagiso Rabada came up with an even cleverer tactic. Take the best ever match figures by a South African bowler against England. I don't know why they didn't try that earlier in the series. Belated vengeance at least for what SF Barnes did to the South Africans in 1913-14. Meanwhile, in Australia, we've seen a one-day series that has shown that 340 for 5 is the new 137 all out, and the Big Bash has completed its bigness and bashness, both tournaments, men's and women's, won by Sydney Thunder. Interestingly, coincidentally, Sydney Thunder, also the stage name used by former 1920s England batsman Ernest Tildesley in his days on the pre-war thrash metal circuit. Sydney Thunder and the Clawhammers of Doom, I believe, was the full band. Check it out on YouTube. And news just coming in. New Zealand have apologised after the Stadium PA in Wellington played the sound of a cash register when the returning rehabilitated Mohammed Amir ran into bowl. I've got a number of problems with this. One, give the guy a second chance. And two, I'm pretty sure that match fixers and spot fixers do not use cash registers. That would be a bit of a giveaway. Maybe if you're going to do something as childish as that, a sound effect of a rustling brown envelope would be more appropriate. Ideally, just let it slide.
So, Doc, 2016, massive year for cricket, as indeed is every year these days.
What do you mean, Frederick? There are no Ashes this year. Absolutely none. Not even one match. What's happened? Can we not squeeze one more golden egg out of that overused goose?
Yes, Doc, I'm not sure everything that pops out of cricket's golden geese are necessarily eggs anymore. At least it's a World T20 year.
Yes, massive chance for cricket's lower-ranked nations to shine on the global stage. And by shine, I of course mean get knocked out before all the proper teams join in.
Proper teams, Doc? You can't use that kind of terminology these days.
Not my words, Fred.
Whose words then?
The words that leap out at you in giant neon letters when you take even the most cursory glance at the tournament schedule. Don't shoot the messenger.
We've talked about Rabada before on this podcast. We've talked about the need for people not to get too excited, not to get too carried away, not to push him ahead, not to overhype him. Unfortunately, Rabada himself doesn't seem to understand this. And he was once described as a galloping stallion by Alan Donald? Well, he's gone well beyond stallionish now. He's now an entire army of horses, apparently.
Right.
And he doesn't understand that he is basically ruining his life by being so good so young. Which is what happened to both of us.
Very, very much so. Yeah, I mean, where'd you go after? From a cricketing point of view, I remember scoring 53 in a game when I was 11 against a school that basically didn't play cricket. And once you've reached that kind of level of the game, where'd you go from there?
Exactly.
Motivation's a problem. I won't deny it. I think I'd take a different spin on the Rabada issue. I believe it was absolutely great cricket by England, long-term cricket. People complain about England's performance in a dead rubber. I think it was visionary. They've looked at the stats. Right, the last two bowlers to take 10 wickets in a match against England, aged under 21. Chetan Sharma for India, 1986. Laxman Sivaramakrishnan also for India in the 84-85 series. Chetan Sharma, one more 5-wicket haul in his career, finished as a test player shortly after his 23rd birthday. Sivaramakrishnan made it 1 week past 20 before he played his last test, took 7 wickets in his last 6 test matches. England have looked at the stats. They know Rabada is a threat. They've let him take 10 wickets. The stats will take care of themselves. This kid is finished. He is yesterday's fast bowling prodigy. I'm telling you. Genius bowling. It wasn't a lack of professionalism. It was 100% stats-based genius.
Next time you look at Rabada and you look at the pace and the ease of which he does it and the movement and the wicket-taking knack that he seems to have, think about in 10 to 15 years' time, he's going to be the next Laxman Srivanamakrishnan.
So, Frederick, Rabada, 13 wickets, must have warmed the cockles of your old dead heart.
Well, Doc, to be honest, pace bowlers taking 13 or more wickets against England used to happen pretty regularly, actually. As you probably remember, Doc.
Really, Frederick?
Yes, about once every 2 games during my first 4 test matches, both times by the same devilishly handsome mustachioed Australian bowler. Then, of course, I rather scaled back on taking 13 wickets in a test, to facilitate the growth of the global game.
How very public-spirited of you, Frederick.
Yeah, people would have got awfully bored if they'd known I was going to take at least 13 wickets every time I played against England. After that, pace bowlers taking 13 against England rather tailed off to about once every 320 matches.
And then Led Rabada comes along.
Yes, and to be fair to him, he's been doing it about once every 1 match over the course of the last 1 match. Even I can see that's pretty good going. Well done.
Yes.
I, for one, was shocked and disgusted when the ICC World Rankings didn't take time out from their sort of historical algorithm type thingy to predict the future. Why weren't they going to tell us that AB de Villiers was going to lose form? Why weren't they going to tell us that Dale Steyn was going to get injured? What is the point of a historically based ranking system if it can't predict the future? Where is the Nostradamus thingy, effecty thing? I mean, they're absolutely pointless. All they're really telling us is all the things that came before us, how to rank them with numbers and things.
Yes, and quite odd numbers. I was reading how they work it out, and
why?
Well, because I've never looked at it, and you think, well, how do they work it? I mean, India,
I had a spare week.
India's, as number 1 in the Test world.
Correct.
So clearly, the Test world is now India because India never win anywhere else in the Test world. So perhaps this is Srinivasan's dream finally coming true. But England's in 5th. I mean, people say, oh, England aren't 5th. But I mean, you look at the ranking scores, there's not much in it. And it's basically completely irrelevant. In the last year, England have beaten Australia, who were number 1 in the rankings. They've beaten South Africa, who were number 1 in the rankings. But they lost to Pakistan, who were number 1 in the rankings, albeit only for a couple of months.
In
the 1980s, after they backdated the system. They lost to West Indies, who were number 1 in the rankings for a very long time.
Yeah.
And they drew that series, and they drew with New Zealand, who are number 1 in the rankings in rugby, which is, I think, about as relevant as South Africa being number 1 in the rankings in cricket after being utterly dismantled in India and losing their greatest player for most of the series. So what we're basically saying is we either need a new system of rankings or people need to stop caring about it. We hear about England saying, oh, we want to be the number 1 team in the world. They should want to be the best team they can be. At the moment, being number 1 team in the world, if India are number 1 team in the world, unable to win outside a small bit of the world...
Can I add something to that then?
Go on then.
Maybe what they should say is we want to be number 1 team in the world for a prolonged amount of time so that people really accept that we are number 1 in the world and that we've actually earned the ranking that we got earlier when we shouldn't have been number 1 in the world.
I'll go with that. So, Jarrod, did you care that England appeared to have pretty much clocked off in that final test in Centurion?
No, I'm not. I don't care about dead rubbers as a general principle. I grew up during Australia's glory time when the only time they would lose was essentially a test that didn't matter. So I'm okay.
Right. See, I did care because I like the idea that all test matches have importance.
And also, more importantly than that, you're the sort of person that wants England to dominate every part of life.
Yeah, also, I mean, I grew up basically at the same time as you. Those dead rubbers against Australia were all we had to cling to. But I think with England, it's an interesting situation that they won. They won the Ashes, then got hammered at the Oval and played dreadfully. They won in South Africa, played some really good cricket. I think much better than they played in the Ashes. Then played terribly in Centurion. So you say, oh well, it's all real. They switch off when they've already won. But the other evidence is they also lost the last test against Pakistan when they had a first innings lead and a win would have given them a drawn series. They lost the second and last test against New Zealand when they were 1-0 up after an even first innings and being in a dominant position at 220 for one. They lost the last test in the West Indies with another first innings lead and they would have won the series. So is it England switching off in the last test of a series they've already won, or is it just a symptom of England being a team capable of being brilliant but also massively and almost delightfully inconsistent?
Yeah, I think they're a really entertaining side to watch because you don't know whether they're going to be funny in a good way or funny in a bad way. And I think that's essentially... I think if you look at the way that sport has changed, this is no longer an English-centric sport anymore. This is now a sport where, for people from all around the world to play. And I think if England are going to have a lasting, impact on the sport, it should be that they are the ones we make fun of.
Right.
Or entertain us. Or a combination of both. They should be the new Pakistan, is kind of what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, because Pakistan are really not the new Pakistan.
Pakistan are definitely not the new Pakistan.